Waking up one day and realizing your brain suddenly learns faster, remembers better, and solves problems like it's nothing. How do you feel? Is it magic? A superpower? Or can an ordinary person actually train their brain to become smarter? Well, science has a surprising answer. In this videocast, we're diving into what really shapes intelligence, how the brain rewires itself, and the simple habits that can actually boost your mental performance. So, can you train your brain to be smarter? Let's find out together.
Today, we are wading into, well, one of the most compelling promises of the modern age, really. This idea that you can just, download an app, play a few games, and actually make yourself smarter.
It's the ultimate self-improvement fantasy, isn't it? Our source material kicks off with this really lovely analogy. It asks us to imagine the brain as a garden.
Yeah.
And the question is, can dedicated effort, the right seeds, the right care can that genuinely make the garden grow, or are we just watering plastic flowers?
Exactly. And we've got a pretty dense stack of research here to sort through, all looking at whether practice and care can truly, grow our intelligence, or if it's all just a myth.
So our mission today is to dig into the research you provided and draw a really hard line. We need to distinguish between improving a specific skill like, say, getting faster at a memory game and actually boosting your overall cognitive horsepower.
Right.
And the source material sets the expectation right away with a pretty sober take. Yes, to some extent, but with limits and conditions.
And our job is to define those limits and conditions.
That's it.
I appreciate that honesty up front. It keeps us from getting swept up in all the marketing.
Yeah.
So before we even look at the research, we have to start with definitions. Because intelligence is, it's such a loosely used term in these app descriptions. Okay, let's unpack this. What are we actually trying to do when we say we want to be smarter?
That is the absolute critical first step. Psychologists, neuroscientists, they're all very, very careful about this distinction. They basically divide intelligence into two major categories.
The first one being crystallized intelligence.
Correct. That's all your accumulated knowledge, the skills you've gathered over a lifetime.
So my vocabulary, historical facts, that sort of thing.
Exactly. Your vocabulary, how to read, math facts, just that whole library of real-world experience you own. And it generally gets better as you keep learning.
And that's not what the brain games are promising.
Yeah.
You can't learn Spanish in 10 minutes of flashing lights.
Yeah.
So the target must be the other one.
That's right. The target is fluid intelligence. This is your ability to solve new problems, to reason, to plan, to adapt when you face something you've never seen before.
The raw mental horsepower.
That's a great way to put it. It's your critical thinking ability, unburdened by past knowledge. If crystallized intelligence is your library, fluid intelligence is the brilliant librarian who can organize any new book you throw at them.
So when people are spending money to train the brain, they're really trying to improve that adaptive, on-the-spot, problem-solving power.
Precisely. They want to upgrade their whole intellectual operating system, not just get a bigger hard drive full of facts.
Okay, so now we get to the fun part, the research showdown.
Yeah.
Because the scientific story here is, well, it's kind of a drama. You have this initial hype followed by a pretty harsh reality check. Here's where it gets really interesting. What were those early findings that got everyone so excited? The ones that made people believe this was really possible?
That would be the studies on the notorious dual end-back exercise. This single task, it arguably sparked the entire modern brain game industry.
Okay, you have to tell us what that actually involves, because it sounds punishingly difficult.
It is. It's extremely demanding on what's called your working memory. So you're in front of a computer and you're tracking two things at once, dual, right?
Right.
Visually, a square pops up in different locations, and at the same time, auditorily, you hear a letter read out loud. Your job is to say if the current thing, both the square's position and the letter matches what happened, N steps back in the sequence.
Oh, wow. So if N is, say, 3, I have to remember where the square was and what letter was said 3 seconds ago. all while new stuff is still coming at me.
Yes, it's pure cognitive overload.
That sounds awful.
But that's the point. It's designed to max out your working memory capacity. And the early results were, they were genuinely exciting. The groups that practiced this for a few weeks, they consistently scored better on standard reasoning tests, the very tests we use to measure fluid intelligence.
And the researchers had a theory for why this worked, a really appealing one.
They did. They theorized that working memory is like a core muscle for the brain. So exercising it is like lifting weights,
Okay.
strengthen that foundational process, and it should lead to better performance everywhere else. In all other reasoning tasks, it was supposed to be the mental equivalent of strengthening your abs to help you run faster and jump higher.
That sounds so hopeful. But we know the story doesn't end there, because if it did, we'd all be doing dual NBAC right now. So if that mechanism, the brain weightlifting, is so sound, why did the bigger, more rigorous studies fail to see that same IQ boost?
And that failure leads us straight to the concept that, well, kind of killed the dream. It's called the transfer problem.
The transfer problem.
Yeah. The brain is highly specialized. When you practice a very specific task, like dual NBAC, you just get incredibly good at that task.
So you're not strengthening the muscle.
You're not. You're just teaching your brain a very specific shortcut to manage that specific flow of information.
So you master the game, but the skill just stays in that little box.
Precisely. The games don't transfer. Think of it like a racing simulator. You can get amazing at it, but does that make you better at navigating a chaotic, rainy intersection in a real city? Not necessarily.
Right.
The brain is great at optimizing for repetition, but that optimization is very limited to the thing being repeated.
And this transfer problem was, it was confirmed definitively,
Right.
undermining the whole industry. Tell us about the evidence that really settled this.
The nail in the coffin was a huge meta-analysis. It pulled together the data from 23 separate high-quality studies on these games.
So not just one lab, this is a massive review.
A massive review designed to settle the question once and for all.
And what did all that data show?
It concluded, pretty unambiguously, that there was no strong evidence that practicing these games increased overall intelligence.
Wow.
The improvements were there, but they were limited to the exact tasks being practiced. You get better at the memory game, faster at the reaction game, but it doesn't make you fundamentally smarter. The general intelligence gains just vanished.
So this failure of transfer is why the hype has cooled so much, at least in scientific circles.
It is. The brain is efficient, but it's also, in a way, lazy. If it can solve the same problem the same way, it will. True growth means forcing it off those worn-out paths.
Which brings us to the real solution, right? Moving from simulated repetition to real engagement. So if the apps are just about mastering the game, what actually works? What supports cognitive function and neuroplasticity?
Right. If we connect this to the bigger picture, the consensus among researchers is that real gains come from two things: novelty and maintenance. The brain has to be challenged in new ways, and it needs the right support to function. Our sources point to 4 key categories that really drive growth.
What's the first and, I'm guessing, most critical one?
It's forcing the brain into complex, new learning. We're talking about learning a new language, picking up a musical instrument, diving into programming logic.
Something with layers of complexity.
Exactly. The key is complexity and novelty. Learning a new recipe probably doesn't count, but learning to read sheet music and play the violin absolutely does.
Because you're building new connections.
You are literally building new neural pathways to handle information it's never seen before. You're expanding the network, not just driving faster on the same old roads.
Okay, that makes sense. What about the second category, which is surprisingly physical?
This is one of the most solid findings in neuroscience. Aerobic exercise.
So running, swimming.
Yep. Sustained activity, walking, running, cycling. And it's not just about blood flow, though that helps. Aerobic exercise triggers the release of a critical chemical called brain-derived neurotrophic factor, or BDNF.
BDNF, that sounds like some kind of brain fertilizer.
That's a perfect analogy. People call it miracle grow for the brain. It supports the health of your existing neurons and actively encourages the growth of new ones. So without that physical activity, your brain's environment just isn't as fertile for change.
The body literally fuels the brain's ability to adapt.
Undeniably.
Okay, so on to number 3. This one seems to cut right to the heart of that fluid intelligence goal: real-world engagement.
This is all about facing genuine, non-repetitive challenges. The brain doesn't grow on autopilot, which is what most of these games become. It grows when you're forced to pull together different pieces of information to solve a problem you didn't see coming.
Can you give us an example of a real challenge that a game could never replicate?
Sure. A difficult ethical decision at work with no clear right answer, or trying to negotiate a complex contract when new variables keep popping up. These problems demand fluid reasoning because there's no template. You have to apply your knowledge creatively to a new high-stakes situation.
The complexity and the real-world consequence are what matter.
That's what makes the difference, yes.
And finally, the fourth category is just taking care of the machine itself.
Absolutely foundational. Nutrition, sleep, and mental care. You can be learning French and running 5 miles a day, but if you're chronically sleep-deprived or stressed out, those gains will be limited, if not totally reversed.
Why is sleep so critical here?
Sleep is when the brain does its maintenance. It's when it consolidates memories. When you learn something new, those neural connections are fragile. During deep sleep, the brain strengthens and integrates them. It turns short-term skill into long-term change.
Right.
And chronic stress floods your system with cortisol, which is actually damaging to the hippocampus, a brain region that's critical for learning. So a calm, rested brain is a prerequisite for growth.
So to wrap this all up then, the conclusion is that the magic IQ boost in 30 days is, well, it's a well-funded myth.
Right.
But real improvement, genuine growth in your intellectual capacity, that's absolutely possible. It just requires sustained effort, variety, and, well, taking care of yourself.
That's the synthesis. We can use that city analogy to tie it all together. If you, the city manager, just drive the same few streets every day, that's brain gaming. The city doesn't grow.
You're just reinforcing old habits.
Exactly. But learning a new complex skill, like a language, that's like building a brand new street, a whole new neighborhood.
Expanding the network.
Yes. And physical exercise, healthy living. That's maintaining the city's infrastructure. That's the BDNF, creating the fertile ground for growth.
And what about facing those real-life challenges?
That's like hiring new entrepreneurial citizens who start new businesses and expand the city limits dynamically. It's that combination, novelty, complexity, and maintenance that keeps your fluid intelligence growing. Your city, your brain can absolutely grow. It just requires real demanding work, not simple repetition.
So it's crystal clear. Getting smarter isn't about rote practice. It's about deep engagement with the new and complex, all backed by good biology.
Which leads us to a final thought for you, the listener, to hell over. If we accept that real intelligence growth comes from facing novel, real-life problems, not from mastering games, then ask yourself this: where in your life, professional or personal, could you deliberately introduce a genuinely difficult, complex, and new challenge this week? Something without an instruction manual, because that's how you ensure your brain is building those necessary new streets. That's where the investment truly pays off.
I'm really glad you were here with me in this videocast. Now you know getting smarter isn't just about genetics or being born intelligent. Your brain can grow, rewire, and upgrade itself if you train it the right way. From learning new skills to challenging your memory and even changing tiny daily habits, your intelligence is way more flexible than you think. So if you care about your focus, creativity, and long-term brain health, start investing in your mind every single day. Because sometimes the biggest upgrade we have is inside our own head. If you liked this podcast, please like it. And before you go, don't forget to hit that subscribe button.
Thank you.